Today, I'm going to rant about something that is very important to me, but it's important to me for you also because it amounts to a different way of life in terms of long term thinking. What I'm talking about is saving. I was reading something and the research was saying that the average person um, basically has no savings. And so if, their job stops or whatever it is, like right now we're having a shutdown, government shutdown. A lot of people are affected by that. The shutdown is, I think, in its third week, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of people are affected by that, and rightfully so. Their money is stopped. And so that's where the importance of the savings comes in. And what you have to do, and I mean now, is look at where you are in a situation where if your money stopped, what will you resort to? And you have to have an answer. So now, what I want you to do is change your mentality right now while you're listening to me. Because this shit is important for you to pass on. You have to begin to look at saving money, currency, the same way you would think about anything else. And you will hear some people when you start developing your mentality of saving and start putting it into action. You may hear people as you accumulate, and even before you accumulate, you'll hear people perhaps start calling you stingy or greedy, because when you start saving, that means that you begin to have, and the other people who are not saving, they haven't saved, so they don't have, right? So now they look at you and say, oh, you're greedy for money because you saved your money. And a lot of people fall for that okey doke and start feeling guilty, and sometimes will give what they've saved to someone who had the same opportunity but just was so liberal or impulsive about buying shit that they're broke. And now they're leaning on you, trying to make you feel guilty because you won't loan them some money or something, or give them some money a lot of times even. So, this is the analogy that I've always lived with. And that is, I've known people who collect things. I mean, everything from a homeboy who collects all kinds of sports cards, baseball, basketball, football cards. He's had them for years. They're worth quite a bit now. I know people who collect cars, real ones, Hot Wheels cars. I know people who collect guns, knives. And when you tend to collect something, you save it, so it tends to get older. And as it gets older, the value increases because it's hard to get as things get older, right? So I know people who collect clothes even. There's some people who collect Michael Jordan sneakers, right? And I never ever seen someone say to somebody, man, you collect baseball cards? Damn, you greedy. You collect knives? Damn, you greedy. Oh, you collect dolls? You're greedy. But if you collect money or save money, since it's much more liquid than those other things, people expect, I can get it from you, perhaps I can borrow it, you don't want to give it, you're greedy. Why? I'm doing the same thing as the guy with the baseball cards, doing the same thing, the guy with the cars, right? Doing the same thing if a person should happen to collect dolls. Dolls could be very valuable as they get older, depending on what doll, right? So whatever it is I'm collecting money, right? Now, if I don't want to part with my money, some people will say I'm greedy or stingy. If, of course, I don't want to part with my baseball cards, I don't want to part with my dolls, I don't want to part with my cars, whatever. They don't say, oh, you're greedy, you don't want to, sell one of your dolls to give me something, you're greedy. They don't say that. But when it's money, people say that a lot of times. So I just look at it the same way. All I'm doing is collecting. And it just happens to be In this case, money, currency. So when you look at it like that, collect your money because at some point you may need it. That's what everyone uses in America to trade, basically. There used to be a lot more um, trading in terms of material things, but now most of the things you trade for, you trade directly money for an item in general. So you have to try to have the monies for the things you need. And that is first and foremost as opposed to your desires or your wants. So the mindset has to be that when any kind of income passes through you, you have to put some aside for yourself. And you can't look at yourself as a gadget because a gadget can't sustain you in general. You can't look at yourself as clothing. You can't look at yourself as sporting events. You have to first and foremost look at securing yourself. And most of us have a family, so securing yourself and your family, you have to look at that. And in so doing, you have to think about accumulating what it is that you need to trade for the different products and services. Now, I'm going to show you something here. I believe I've got it right here in this room. Well, I know you can see it once I lift it up. See this? See this? Now, motherfucker, help me. That right there represents collecting. And all I'm doing is collecting currency, money. I have a granddaughter coming March of this year, so 3 months. And I guess I've already had that thing for about 3 months. And so, periodically, and I try to do it daily, or whenever I'm thinking about it, any kind of change or extra money, and for a lot of people, including myself, you may say, well, extra money, I don't have extra money. What I mean when I say extra money is, let's say for instance I go to the store, the guy tells me something costs $1.09. I give him $2. He says, oh, you don't have 9 cents? And I might have 9 cents in my pocket, but I say no so that he can give me the 91 cents change. So now I got 91 cents change in my pocket, right? So now the way I think about that change in my pocket is it's gone. I don't even think about it because the way I think about that is, what if I lost that? I mean, would it be the end of the world? Of course it wouldn't be. So during the day, any monies I spend, any change I put in that pocket, and it's gone. I mean, it's gone. It's not, money that I have anymore. And then when I get to the house that evening or whatever, I'm getting undressed, I take all of the change and just put it inside of the bottle. Now this bottle thing, as I said, is for my granddaughter, but I have one for myself too. And so one of the things you'll be surprised of, and this is important to teach the concept of saving, because, and I want you to go online and look at anything dealing with compound interest and just study that for a while, because that's the magic of something that you're collecting, namely like money. So when I look at the bottle and look at something compounding, people a lot of times think of a penny as like, oh, well, that's just a penny. But the penny is just an increment of the dollar. So if you get 100 pennies, then you have $1. And things have to accumulate to amount to something anyway, right? So if I got a penny, I put it in there. It seems like to most people that's a useless penny. But once it gets with its brothers, right? Just like a lot of times one person fighting, he's useless. But if he go get his boys and come back, then they become a formidable foe, right? It's the same thing with your currency. You look at your currency really as an army. And what you're doing is you're building up an army so that when a foe comes, you're ready to deal with them. The foe might be the doctor, because you got to pay a doctor bill. It may be the gas man, the light bill. All of those are the people or the things that your army has to be prepared for. And you have to think of a technique. Your technique might be to be a doctor so that you can be able to have the currency to deal with stuff, right? But if you're the average working person, you got to start developing income streams, right? So one of them could be the idea of saving. Every mickle make a muckle. Your pennies that go in there, you develop an army. You're making them stronger by every one that you add, right? So if you work, especially, which we all do in some form or fashion, remember now, don't walk by a penny. It makes no sense. How can you walk by a penny if you headed to work for a penny? It's just more pennies. Like I said, think about what it is, the root of it. Let's say, for instance, you work for $15 an hour, right? So, I mean, if they said they had to do it and everybody accepted it, they could pay you in pennies, right? You're going to work for pennies, really, because that is just the root of our currency. So don't walk by a penny when you could pick it up, put it in your pocket, and say, okay, now I'm gonna keep going on. A lot of times, people, if they see a quarter, they'll pick it up. A dime or a nickel, silver, they pick a penny. They walk right by it. The penny, you need 5 of them, then it becomes a nickel. It just takes a little more time, but nonetheless, it's still going to add up to the nickel or the dime or the quarter or the dollar or the $100, right? And by putting it in, for instance, a receptacle, it starts to add up. It starts to compound after a while. And so I've been doing this for years, and you'll be surprised how easy it is to finance some things. I can remember all during the years that my kids were growing up, I would call it fishing, because it's not easy to get dollars out of there. It's real easy to get the coins, you just turn it over, but it's not easy to get dollars out of there. So one of my kids would come up to me, Dad, I need such and such for school. I said, man, I ain't got no cash on me or whatever. Go fishing. And I knew, and it made me feel comfortable, because I knew if they needed $5 for something even, it was going to be in there. And it was very painless for me. It was plenty of times, and even now, I can go in there, man, on a Sunday or something like that, and I say, to my wife, baby, let's go to the buffet. And before I mentioned it, I went up in my deal here, turned it over, and got $30 out. Very painless, because I was just putting $1 in every once in a while, putting quarters, putting this and that. And when I turn it over and get dollars out, like I said, I can get out $30, $40 sometimes. And one of the things that really intrigued me about saving like that, getting the change together, was when I would take the change to the thing to get it counted. So I would take it to the local one in my Kroger grocery store, the Coinstar machine, and I take the change and put it in there and get it, and I look and say, whoa, shit, there's $165 worth of fucking change. Whoa, damn, that change adds up. They count the fucking pennies too. It adds up. So I started saying, wow, but me being me, I looked at it, I said, wow, the $165, but these Coinstar motherfuckers just made 8% off of me just that quick. And 8% was adding up to, out of $165 or something like that, 8% was adding up to about $14, something like that. right? So I was like, God damn, that's kind of high. But my credit union got a machine, right? And then as long as you remember, you can go and use the machine. And a ticket comes out with the amount. You take the ticket up to the counter, just like you do in the Coinstar, except now Coinstar is up to 10%, and people still use it. Coinstar is a very smart thing. You got a coin, you got a machine sitting there, and as long as it's working, and most of the time it usually would be, you just got a machine there standing there making a percentage of the money that people put in. And I'm gonna tell you something. Every time I'm in Kroger now, because like I said, I learned a new way to get mines counted, and I don't count it much, probably twice a year or something like that. But one of the things I notice when I go in Kroger, the people who I see using that are a lot of Hispanics getting change counted. But anyway, that's a very important thing. So now, this one here, when it comes March, now for this one, I've been every once in a while putting a 5 or a 10 or something too, since it's my granddaughter's. But in general, I've just been putting change in dollar bills. So in March, it's probably only going to be $125 or something like that. But it's just the idea, it'll be started. And once she learns it, and then still her mom and dad can always put in here. So the saving is very, very, very important. And it's not to become rich. It's to develop a mindset that you don't consume everything. Don't become a person of strictly consumption. See? Now, what happens when you save in the long run or in the short run, depending on when you really develop yourself, you can begin to invest your savings. You can begin to invest your savings and develop other income streams. But the idea is to first develop a mindset wherein the first thing you think is to save some as opposed to spend. Very, very important in the long term. Very important. It could make the difference between you living in a home and you living in an apartment for the rest of your life. Just making small changes that seem like a lot of times that's too penny ante. I don't want to seem like I'm really that penny ante. But you really are that penny ante. Because you're working and you can only survive from paycheck to paycheck. So you are penny ante, and that's the first thing you got to recognize. You ain't no big balling motherfucker like you see in these videos and shit like that. You think you are in your mind. Yes, I know you are wrapped in influence. It's a part of the culture. But only a few are really balling like that. The rest of the motherfuckers is tripping with that and waking up having to bust their ass going to work every day. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. But you got to realize, and this that I'm dropping right now is very important. Just for a halfway thinking motherfucker. If you work, right? And this seems very simple, but a lot of people don't peep this. If you're working right now and you're consuming too much to where every time you look around, you're broke, but more than that, you know that you have to go to work because you got to pay the bills for what you've accumulated, right? Then you should easily be able to understand that you will always be a worker. Because you setting yourself up to be a worker. You got to go to work because you keep consuming shit that you got to keep paying for. So unless you change your habit, there's no way that you can ever because a lot of people say, well, I want to do this and I want to, of course I'm going to have my own business and I want to do, and that's great, man. Those are laudable goals. Because I hear a lot of people talk about how they want to be independent. They want to have their own business. They want to, basically they want to live the American dream. Now, it's very difficult to live the American dream if you're talking about the entrepreneur way. It's very difficult to do that if you don't change your habit of consumption. You have to change your habits of consumption. Otherwise, you never will be able to accumulate nothing to invest. And there are a lot of people like that because they want to live this life like, yo, I'm balding, man, I'm this, I'm that. You ain't none of that shit. And if you ever want to even be that, to where you can nearly fake the funk, because if you don't just get millions, you can't even fake the funk like the people who are really balling, even though they may be broke within a certain amount of time. But the bottom line is, you need to really realize where you are and start from there. And one of the main things you got to do is change your habit, your way of thinking about currencies, money. Right? If you continue to have the habits that you do, you never can get out of the kind of a slavery type of a concept. Exploitation type of concept. Because you're thinking it's too penny ante to pick up a penny. You want to walk by the motherfucking penny. Then you on your way to work for the motherfucking pennies. It doesn't make sense. What are you thinking about? Then you hear people really with these goals, man, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be this, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have my own business. How are you doing it if you're thinking is, man, as soon as I get something, I got to have me some Jordans. Boy, I got to have me a motherfucking $1,000 phone and shit. Oh, yeah, man, yeah, we going to Wichita. Yo, you going to the game, man? But all that shit is great. And you got to do things to entertain yourself. But you got to think about the bottom line. But moreover, your thinking always has to be long term. I hear these people saying, a lot of young cats, especially black, they don't really expect to live that long. A lot of them don't expect to live past 25. If that's your thinking, then yeah, keep doing what you're doing like a dumbass. If you're thinking that you're going to live like you probably are to be, nowadays, 80, 85 years old, if you think correctly, shit, by the time you're 40, man, you'll be able to live the next 40 years of your life in relative ease. And this is another thing I want to inject right here, because everybody's not going to listen to this. You be the person that understands what it is, and then you'll be able to live off of the other motherfuckers who's not listening to me. Who are not listening to me, you live off of them, because if they have certain habits, you'll be able to see how you can exploit them. Huh? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that just in a heads up way. See, because everybody's not going to listen. Let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about. When I came from very, obviously, meager means. I came from nothing. And when I was 17, I joined the military. And I can remember, because I was always, I guess, kind of a frugal person for the most part. Mainly because I ain't have shit. And I had to have hand-me-down type stuff, so it became like it wasn't really that big of a deal for me. I didn't have to necessarily have brand new shit. But anyway, I joined the military, and I can remember when we were in kind of like a reception aspect of the training. That first day or two, they paid us. And I can remember, and at that time, in basic training, you didn't have a bank account or anything like that, so you kind of kept the money. And so I can remember, it may have only probably $100, $200 or whatever, but I can remember getting the check. And then it seemed like for something else, you know how to have different things they pay you for, uniform, basic allowance for quarters. It's just something that said, hey, you guys get another paycheck. And this was like a week later or something. And I remember thinking, okay, good. Shit, I didn't even spend nowhere near 3/4 of the money they gave me last week, because we weren't doing anything. We were training, so there's no time to even spend it. You went to the PX or whatever to get your hygiene items for the most part for your basic training, but there was no entertainment or whatever, so there was no time or place to spend it. So when they gave me the second check, I remember saying, "Oh wow," because you stacked it. I said, "Wow, okay, so I got this amount now." And I distinctly remember saying, well, damn, if they keep paying me like this, shit, by the time I get out of here in 8 weeks, shit, I'm gonna be good. And I remember that when we got out of basic training, it was good. I was like, shit, I had maybe like $1,500 or something like that. Um, and it was the most money I ever had. And at one time, and so I said, okay, well, this is cool. So when we got to the next aspect, which was your school training for your occupation, I opened up a bank account. So I opened up a bank account, and I'm looking. I'm saying, "Oh man, this is good," because I'm still living in like a barrack situation, so I'm not paying any rent, no utility, none of this, right? So when I'm getting my my checks also now in school, I'm putting them in the bank, and I'm seeing them like, oh, okay, 1,500, 1,800, 2,000. Okay, damn, it's nice, right? Now, when we hit school, coming from basic training, everybody, the testosterone and everything, right? Because you 8 weeks, you haven't been with the mixed company too much and blah, blah, blah. So now you have your freedom. You're not locked down in basic training. You're out amongst people. You can go to the club and do whatever as long as you're back and ready for school the next day. So it was kind of like a college type of environment. And you had young men, young women, now free to roam. The problem that I saw real quick was all of the dudes were going out and trying to party so hard, they were running out of money. Soon as they got let go, boom, they ran ripping to the club, ripping to the PX, buying new clothes and going to the club and doing all, and getting drunk off their ass every night. And for me, I was like, okay, I'm just kind of chilling. I went to the club and did all this, but I wasn't just going in headstrong, So finally I started seeing, man, these dudes ain't have no money. I said, shit, I started approaching them, man, look, I'll lend you some money, man. But if I lend you 100, you know what I'm saying, I got to have 140 back payday. He's like, oh man, no problem, man, just to get that money to be able to go and hang out. So I was like, okay, well, shit, this works out good. So that early on taught me the importance of saving money when other people aren't. Because then you can exploit them. And they're not thinking, you don't care, well, you just charge a motherfucker 40% within a week or two. And they still go, oh, I don't care, man. Shoot, I gotta do this anyway. But all they're thinking is, man, I'm gonna get paid. I'm gonna get paid. But then you get to the point where you get paid, and boom, and by the time you get paid, it's all gone because you owe. And then you're going through that cycle again, borrowing, working to pay. This is what I'm saying. You keep that cycle going, and before you know it, you're 60 years old. You're still doing the same thing. But when you was 20, you was saying, man, I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna do. But you didn't get your habits going right. You kept being impulsive and acting a goddamn fool is really what it is. When you know that you have to have something so that when something happens, instead of being just like, oh well, Now, misfortune can happen to anybody, but still have some wherewithal to think about that when you're young, and you'll be very surprised as it compounds. See? So saving, develop the habit of saving, develop the mentality that you're not going to consume everything. It's very important. And then next you start seeing that you have to start looking at the way you spend money. And you'll do it automatically once you start saving and accumulating, because then you'll be like, I don't want to part with this since it took me some time to accumulate it. So if I do have to part with it, I'm going to be very judicious about it. Now for minorities, especially black people, Saving is very important. We don't realize, most of us, that we are in fact the consumers of America. We are in fact the consumers. So it's time now to shift your thinking, because in the long run you want to be an investor and you want to be able to develop income streams where you can live off of and only do work for your entity. You no longer are going to be working for other people. You're going to work for your entity. You're going to develop you an enterprise, a corporation, and work for it. And we'll deal with that at another time. But the first step is to develop the mindset to save. That comes first. If $100 comes past me, right, that's what you're going to think. If I get paid $100, I don't care if I work in Burger King. I don't care where I work at. I don't care if I'm a doctor. When the money comes through me, automatically, just like I take it out for the gas man, the light bill man, boom. I'm going to take it out from me. Take out your 10% or whatever it is you could afford. And do it sometimes until it hurts, because you're not spending the money now. You're not wasting it. You know that in the long term it's going to accumulate and it's going to benefit you and the people around you that you want it to benefit. Very, very important to save, man. Very important to develop the mindset. And it makes you green. You know, everybody's talking about this conservative green stuff. It makes you green when you start saving your currency, because then it carries over into other things. You know, I find myself getting ready to throw something away, and then I think twice. Nah, I don't want to throw that away. I'm not going to become a hoarder, but this particular thing, I try to see value if it has it. No, I can use this for such and such, and if I can, reuse it. You know what I'm saying? As opposed, especially if it's made of wood or metal or something. You say, man, this is a good piece of wood. All I might have to do is just plane it. You can take a bad piece of wood and plane it, and you know it's a brand new piece of wood. So, and all you're gonna do is just take off maybe 1 or 2 layers, and it's a brand new piece of wood. So, and then metal, you take a piece of metal and you think, oh, it's just a piece of metal, but you take the piece of metal and put a few holes in it and screws, it might be a brace. Or, I mean, you got to use your imagination, but that's what you're doing when you're accumulating your currency anyway. You start developing imagination for how do I find creative ways to save? How do I develop creative ways to invest? You know, they got these apps now, Robinhood and all these others, that allow you to like invest, you know, small amounts. Why? Because every mickle make a muckle. And you begin saying to yourself, well, you know, this is another creative way to save and or invest. And they realize it, and they're putting it to you, solving a problem and getting paid in the middle of it, right? Because they realize that there are some people who are going to be creative like that, saving small amounts, and then as it accumulates, investing it. So very, very important concept to grab early on in life. Don't accept anyone telling you you're stingy, you're greedy, and all this. You're not going to necessarily be mega rich, but you are establishing a mindset that's going to take you a long way in the long run. I guarantee it. Start with small amounts in a bank account. Start accumulating. Get you in some kind of receptacle. I use the water jug to just start. Just gradual. And let me tell you about another concept or analogy. When there is a plumbing leak, if you've ever went into someone's bathroom and you look under the vanity, sometimes you can look right at the vanity and you can see a hole, or you can see where there is a hole developing, and you can just kind of peer up just a little bit and you can see that there's a leak coming from the trap, the P trap. And it's normal over time, things, the drain deals tends to come loose. And so you'll see that there's been a leak right there. Now there's a hole there, or what's making a hole, you'll see if you pay attention. Now, what's been happening, again, as I said, is just a gradual leak. One drop of water didn't make that hole. One drop of water didn't make that discoloration there that's going to be a hole if it keeps dripping. It was the constant dripping, 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 dripping. It was the constant dripping that eventually developed the hole there. That's the way your money is going to work. This has to be constant, and then it's going to create an effect after a while. Same thing a rat does. A rat can get and gnaw its way damn near through anything. They won't just be able to smell something behind a wall and just take one big bite and say, "Bah, I'm going through that wall." It don't work like that. They just keep gnawing away, gnawing away, gnawing away, gnawing away. And eventually a hole is created and they go through and get what they wanted. It wasn't a short term. They had to keep gnawing, keep gnawing, keep gnawing away until they could break through. And that's the way, you want your asset, your currency to do. Have a compounding effect. But it starts from a gradual input, gradual, just drip, 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 drip. Right? Now, they've even got a financial instrument named after that very analogy. And I don't know this, but I'm saying that. Dividend reinvestment program. They call it DRIP. That's when you take your dividends. Once you invest in stock, companies pay dividend. And that's another video. But once you invest in stock, some companies pay dividend. And now some people, especially as they've gotten older and have accumulated, they can take their dividends now and use them to help them out as income in some way. But now younger people, what's recommended is that you reinvest your dividend for it to start having this compound effect, right? So they call it the DRIP plan, DRIP, dividend reinvestment plan. But anyway, that's another thing. But my point is, the DRIP effect is what's going to help you in the long run. The sooner you start it, the better. In some way, start developing a mentality of saving. That's the only way you can sustain yourself. Otherwise, you keep yourself as a sucker all your life. You're a sucker. At some point, you want to develop assets to where you can start investing and start really living what is the American dream, right? Because that's why you're here. So in America, our system is capitalism. So you have to get capital. So the way that you start, and there are all kind of ways eventually you'll see that you can develop and accumulate capital. But the first thing is you have to start thinking about it and start thinking, I need to start saving. I need to start saving. I need to start accumulating. Okay? And I want to do it at an early age. All right? Now, it's not going to start overnight. You still have a lot of impulsive thoughts. We know this. So it's going to take some time, but it would behoove you to start thinking about it and start putting it into action as soon as possible, because time waits for no one, right? So please start saving. You'll be glad you did. And I'm glad that I'm able to impart some knowledge, some information in at least one person. And if you grab it, I want you to pass it on. It will have the compounding effect. All right then.